This is the second and final analysis on Jeffrey Epstein based on the Steve Bannon interview. It explores his psychological profile and the reasons behind his inexplicable connections to the world's most powerful people.
So in answer to your question, at that time I recognized around the world that monies and currencies were not really well understood. But again, it was only numbers. So numbers, and I'll get to the fact that it was bad thinking. Numbers are very good.
Are most people that you meet, even on Trilateral Commission, when you meet most people, do you find most leaders financially illiterate, economically illiterate?
Most political leaders don't come out of a background of finance. Most political leaders come out of a background of being popular.
As soon as he speaks, Jeffrey Epstein clearly sends a message. He believes he is far superior to most politicians, not only in finance, but in almost every aspect of life. This arrogance is more telling than you might think because it is rooted in a long-standing precedent. In my opinion, he was able to manipulate not just politicians, but far more powerful and influential people for years, always for his own benefit. Let's go back to 2001. As I mentioned in my first video, Epstein purchased several mansions in the 90s and early 2000s that most can only dream of, including his infamous Palm Beach property. He lived only a mile away from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago, and the two knew each other very well. In a calculated move for influence, Epstein made a $100,000 donation to the Palm Beach Police Department. By 2003, neighbors began reporting a large number of young women visiting or leaving his home. However, nothing happened at the time because they were all reported as adults. The first official complaint involving a minor was made in 2005 after a mother discovered her 14-year-old daughter was carrying $300. A serious investigation began and a special investigative unit was assigned due to the nature of the crime and the immense power Epstein already wielded. Even the FBI stepped in as informal partners. Investigators soon discovered far more victims than they could ever imagine. Dozens were identified. The scale was so vast they could barely grasp the size of what looked like a literal network. Epstein's derangement was on full display. He even sent a messenger to his school to deliver flowers to a victim as part of what he chillingly called a performance. To add insult to injury, Epstein hired private investigators to stalk attorneys, police officers, and even the victims themselves. This is where Jeffrey Epstein's influence truly took effect. Alexander Acosta, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida under the Bush administration, was contacted by Palm Beach investigators to ensure his team would prosecute. A single count could have put Epstein behind bars for life. Despite evidence of human trafficking and 35 to 40 victims willing to testify, things went south very quickly. FBI agents were suddenly unable to cooperate or even discuss Epstein. The FBI side of the case was completely shut down, a move that left many agents absolutely furious. Worse still, in 2008, Epstein secured a sweetheart deal with Alexander Acosta behind the backs of the victims, the police, and the victim's attorney, Brad Edwards. He pleaded guilty to solicitation of prostitution, serving only 18 months.
Jeffrey Epstein went to jail just before 10 this morning. He pleaded guilty in open court. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility, 12 for felony solicitation of property, and an additional 6 for procuring persons under 18 for property. The conviction stemmed from several incidents from August of 2004 to October of 2005. The prosecuting attorney would not say how many female victims there are. She would only say there was more than one adult victim and more than one underage victim. After 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility, Epstein will serve another 12 months house arrest at his Palm Beach home. The 54-year-old will be confined to his home except for work and other activities approved by his probation officer. In addition, Epstein will serve 12 months of community service at his own nonprofit, the Florida Science Foundation, and he has to stay away from minors. The guilty plea and deal end a years-long process that could have sent Epstein to jail for 15 years.
He was granted immunity from all federal charges, and incredibly, this immunity extended to all his named and unnamed co-conspirators at the time. This is completely crazy. I found this information in the third episode of Netflix docuseries Jeffrey Epstein Filthy Rich, if you want to verify it for yourself. To add another layer to this, Alexander Acosta later became Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor in 2017.
Facts are important, and facts are being overlooked. This matter started as a state matter. It was prosecuted initially by the state of Florida and not by the U.S. Attorney's Office. In 2006, a grand jury convened by the state attorney, the district attorney of Palm Beach County, reviewed the evidence, and recommended a single charge. And that charge would have resulted in no jail time at all, no registration as a serial offender, and no restitution to the victim.
In my very humble opinion, Epstein held serious leverage over one or several very powerful people at the time. Only a situation like this can explain the absurdity of this deal. At the very least, you can see the magnitude of the power he had. It was extremely abnormal. It is not surprising that he looked down so easily on people in positions of authority.
So in some of the countries, in some of the African countries, for example, they might have been a military person. They were a general. In some of the African countries, they might have been a disc jockey. Or in our country, they would have been an actor. The knowledge of money isn't, they don't have expertise, they have no degrees in finance. They really, and this is one of the major problems, their expertise, if they have any financial knowledge, is of their own checking account or bank account and filling in their own taxes. So many world leaders who don't really have a financial underpinning make fundamental errors when it comes to money on a country or institutional level.
Like when you first met those leaders, you had to be wowed.
No.
You're 10 years out of Coney Island.
No, I'm not wowed by people of position. I'm wowed by people of great ideas. And I don't care if it's the bus driver.
Later in the Bannon interview, he discusses how he heard of the 2008 financial crash while he was incarcerated.
On Sunday afternoon, September 14th, 2008, where were you?
Sorry?
It was the night they put Lehman Brothers in bankruptcy in London.
I was in jail.
Seriously?
Yes.
So the financial crisis of 2008 happened when you were in jail?
Yes.
Oh, this is going to be so amazing. This is going to be so amazing. I take it you didn't have your Wall Street Journal dropped off to you in the morning, your Financial Times.
No.
How did you hear about what was going to happen to Lehman Brothers, and what did you immediately think when you heard they was going to be put into bankruptcy?
I'm glad you asked that question. I was in solitary confinement September 14th. And again, some of the public stories about the wonderful time I had in jail and my work release, which didn't come till months after. I'd been there since June in an 8x10 cell with a bed in the back, a 6-foot bed in the back, a chrome sink with a toilet attached to it, and a little piece of metal sticking out that was supposed to act as a table. Now, since I was in jail, there were no books. Why? There's no library. No library, but you're in jail. No, I was in jail, not prison. So in jail, I was in a place which was called the Special Housing Unit, which is for the roughest, toughest, meanest people. They had put me there, they said, for my own protection. So I was in a 8x10 cell with a little slit in the door where they would serve my food on a tray about 9 inches by 4 inches. And then as soon as I finished eating, they would take the tray and close it down. And one of the guards said, "Do you understand there's Wall Street's crashing. I'm worried about my pension fund. What should I do?" And I said, "Sorry, Wall Street's crashing? What's happened?" And he said, "There's some crisis and some companies are going bankrupt." I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, it's all over the papers. We're all terrified we're going to lose our life savings because we have either a 401k or our pension funds. We don't know anything about money. Mr. Epstein, can you tell us, like, what's going on? Am I going to be able to afford my children's education? Am I going to be bankrupt like this company called Lehman Brothers?" And there's another company in the front page today called Bear Stearns. "Oh no," I said. Why? Because that's the company I was a partner in. And in fact, that was a company I had a very large investment in. So, as a great story, I didn't have my Wall Street Journal, but in the early mornings, you're allowed to make 2 phone calls. collect. And when you pick up the phone, you can dial a number, and when the person picks up, they say, "You're getting a call from the Palm Beach County Jail. Will you accept reverse charges?" And the person either says yes, and the call goes through, or the person says no. The person I had called was Jimmy Kane, the president of Bear Stearns. And I said, "Tell me what's going on." And so that my knowledge of the financial crisis happened with Jimmy, who was at the center of the storm, telling me about what Lehman had gone under, and they were trying to figure out a way, should they bail out Bear Stearns? The question you want to ask is, who was the other call to?
Okay. Who was the other call to?
The other call was to my friend at J.P. Morgan, who was then, I didn't know it at the time, trying to buy Bear Stearns. So at one point, I had two phones. It was difficult because they're afraid people are going to hang themselves with the phone cord. So they don't actually come together and they're pretty short. So I was actually going between two phones talking to Bear Stearns and J.P. Morgan at the same time. So I found it amusing.
And it never struck you about how to end up in a situation like this?
No, that would be probably means I would be too self-aware.
You can't possibly expect me to believe this.
I know.
He clearly positions himself as this necessary figure, claiming he explained the crisis to correctional officers while making calls to global elites. This alone reveals his audacity. In my opinion, Epstein had a true God complex. This interview was recorded in 2019. There were no signs of depression. He was clearly fighting back despite everything. He was arrested on July 6, 2019, and Alexander Acosta, the man who facilitated the 2008 deal, resigned just 6 days later under intense criticism. Less than a month after that, Epstein was found dead in his cell. While suicide was ruled a cause, two forensic experts, including the renowned pathologist Cyril Wecht, have publicly stated there was no evidence Epstein leaped from his bunk to himself. Furthermore, he had 3 fractures on the hyoid bone, an injury that is extremely difficult to sustain from hanging or leaning forward. On August 8, 2019, just 2 days before his death, Epstein placed his entire fortune into a trust in the Virgin Islands, near the infamous Epstein Island he acquired in 1998. I'll end this with an analogy. Julius Caesar was taken out by his own people for having too much power in an effort to preserve the establishment. He was another man who almost viewed himself as a god. I'll leave it at that.